Everybody, welcome to Tony's Time. We're talking NASCAR, the starting lineup for the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500 NASCAR race in Martinsville is Wednesday, and why not bring on my buddy Scott Spreitzer. Scott, we have not done a video together since, post-COVID-19. So first of all, it's nice to see you, and I see you in the winner's circle every Wednesday and Sunday in NASCAR as well, my friend.
It's been a good run for 24 years now, and we've grown a real nice reputation as being, the premier sports bettor when it comes to NASCAR. Since 1996, I actually got into it the end of 95, Tony. Last couple of the races in 1995 when I was doing the Stardust line here in Las Vegas, and just from that point on, I've handicapped just about every race since. So it's been a long run, and we've been doing well, and got a couple of nice runs going into this week. Can't wait to get at it.
Yeah, myself as well here. Obviously, we're going for our 10th top pick in a row in NASCAR on my program. And I think before we get to this race at Martinsville, for everybody watching, come over and get that free $60 at Doc's, because I'll tell you what, you hear a lot of hype and hyperbole and outlandish claims in this arena, Scott. But I can tell you one thing right now. When it comes to NASCAR, Scott Spreitzer and Tony George is one of the strongest 1-2 punches in the country when it comes to your NASCAR picks and the results from those picks, Scott. I know I've been tearing it up. You've been tearing it up, coming off a huge pick again this last Sunday. So congratulations. And I think the people, if you're watching these videos online, you're watching handicapping videos, Scott, if we're not blowing smoke up your butt, you got a couple pretty strong cappers here.
Well, I'll tell you where we got started. Like I said, 95, 96. And what we did is we would have a group of guys, about 3 or 4 guys. Bobby Donahue, old name blast from the past. A guy named Sean Hess, who has made a living doing nothing but sports betting since the 80s. He's actually 80 years old, going on about 50 right now. And we used to sit every single Saturday morning or Sunday morning, more Sundays than Saturdays, around 7 a.m. Pacific time at different casinos. But the 4 of us would get together and we would map out our plays for that day. And one thing that I remember about this particular track this week, Martinsville, it was April 1998. The late Bobby Hamilton was around anywhere from 20 to 22 to 1 to win the race. And this was back in the day when there weren't a lot of matchups to be played. It was all to win bets for the most part. And the books hadn't really caught on yet. Guys like Micah Roberts, Fred Crespi, they had yet to come aboard in Vegas as odds makers, follow NASCAR as odds makers, and revolutionize the industry. So we were getting gifts. Bobby Hamilton's favorite track was Martinsville by far, and he was in that 20 to 22 to 1 range. He led like 380 out of 500 laps, Tony. And we cashed that big ticket. And still to this day, because of the amount that we had on Bobby Hamilton at 22 to 1, is still my biggest single day, or payday, I should say, since I've been betting NASCAR. And they did revolutionize this business enough to where it's been more lucrative to bet head-to-head matchups over the past decade than it has to play to-win bets. They've kind of taken a little value away from the to-win betting and given us better options with head-to-head matchups. But it's been outstanding. I've loved the sport. Our group made over $85,000. I think it was 2000 or 2001 net in one particular season. And we just continue to handicap it and continue to win. And glad you're on board and doing well yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And outstanding effort there. Be sure and check out Scott Spreitzer's stuff each and every day right here on YouTube and his free picks. And I'm sure he'll be talking about NASCAR Wednesday and Sunday, so be sure and get over there. We're talking about Martinsville here. They call it the paperclip. It's a half-mile track where driving skills, car setup, and, of course, driver and experience on this track is an absolute must. It's kind of a unique track in the fact that it has asphalt straightaways, yet concrete corners, and those corners are only 12-degree banked, and the straightaways are 0-degree banked. And it's going to be interesting, Scott. 8 of the last 9 Martinsville race winners came from top 10 starting positions. But the funny thing is about that, no one from the front row since 2013, and only 3 front row starters since 2009 have won this race. And of course, the starting grid is already out, Scott. There's no qualifying, there's no practice. You saw kind of how that played out in Atlanta a little bit. You only had about 11 cars on the lead lap. They were tearing up tires like a mofo there in Atlanta. This is going to be an interesting race. The last Wednesday night race for NASCAR right now until they do the All-Star race. But nonetheless, Scott, an interesting and unique challenge. This offers a lot of drivers here on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's big different handicap than Atlanta, obviously. You mentioned the tires being shredded, and Atlanta's a sandpaper surface for the most part. So, and you got a flat track now when you go to Martinsville. So there are certain drivers who do well on flat tracks and do better there than they do on the high degree banking. This is only the third. This is the 11th race overall this season for NASCAR, but only the third that's going to use the 750 horsepower package. And Robbins Racing couldn't be more apropos than it is on this track, kind of like Bristol, slower speeds, smaller track, and the fellows are going to be trading paint all night long. I'll tell you what, right out of the blocks, I'm not saying he's a lock to win. I'm not saying he's a lock. We never do that to win his matchups, but you just should not make matchup bets against a guy like Denny Hamlin. You talked about veteran drivers and where you want to be in this particular race. He's already in the playoffs. He's already got 2 wins this season. He's driving with no pressure on his shoulders whatsoever. He's got 5 wins. He's got 15 top 5s in his career at Martinsville, and he's led over 1,500 laps at this track. So my first piece of advice when looking to bet Martinsville, if you're looking to bet head-to-head matchups, you either play Hamlin or you stay away from his matchups altogether, Tony.
Yeah, and another one here you want to keep a look at, and Kyle Busch. Now, he's not the most popular driver around. He's not most popular driver among the drivers. I know a driver, talked to him today, a little breaking news later on for you here, folks, from that driver. But nonetheless, Kyle Busch has just one finish outside the top 5 at Martinsville since 2015. And bear in mind, Scott, they run this racetrack twice a year, so that's 11 starts. And this is a guy I'm not looking to fade. And another one that's getting a lot of traction right now, Scott, pardon the pun, but nonetheless getting a lot of press. Martin Truex Jr. has done well on this track, and there's a lot of people that are liking him right now. And of course, Brad Keselowski always runs well here as well. So you take a look at the top 10, the polls here. I want to give it to the people right now. You're seeing some of the odds flash above my head here of that's just to win the race overall. But the poll setter here, based on Brian Blaney, you got Aric Almirola, Joey Logano, Clint Bowyer, Martin Truex, 5th place, Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Bowman, Kurt Busch, and then Kevin Harvick. And of course, Kevin Harvick's been on fire, but you're not, and he won here in Atlanta, Scott. You haven't heard a lot of talk about Harvick this week, as strong as he's been here so far this season.
Yeah, I wouldn't, it's tough to bet against Harvick on any surface, in any track, in any degree of banking. You mentioned Kyle Busch. I mean, listen, you look at Hamlin, Keselowski, Kyle Busch on this track of late. Keselowski, 7 top 5s in his last 10 at Martinsville. And of course, Kyle Busch, wicked on every track. Keselowski has been running well, even when I don't think he's going to be a top 5 driver. He's done extremely well at some of the tracks that he really hasn't had a ton of success in the past. So those are your 3 drivers that you're really looking at staying away from if you're looking to play against certain drivers. But as far as I like to look at, if I'm going to play to win bets, which 99.5% of the plays that I give out at DocSports.com are head-to-head matchups these days. It's been that way for a few years now. If I'm looking to bet or to give people to win bets, I'm looking for a little bit bigger odds than Hamlin, Keselowski, and Kyle Busch, but they're tough to back. And I'll tell you what, there's a couple of decent big odds drivers in this one. Talking about Jimmie Johnson at 20-1. He's won here 9 times. He ran well with this package, 750 horsepower at Bristol. He's led nearly 3,000 laps at this track in his career. And Clint Bowyer, which you see on your screen right now at 20-1. He won here in the spring 2 years ago. Solid flat track racer. He owns a pair of top 5s this season using that 750 horsepower package. So again, it's like, the horse for the course. I mean, you got to find drivers who do well on certain tracks. And I'm glad you brought up Kurt Busch, because I got to show you something, Tony. This was given to me by a client after the 2004 season when I had given him Kurt Busch to win the season series. And I got to show it because I mean, this is old school. This is Kurt Busch when he used to race for Jack Roush, and he won the 2004 championship for NASCAR's what was then the Winston Cup Series, driving that Sharpie number 97, which you don't see anymore. And you know what? I've had that in a glass case. I brought it out just for this video. But Kurt Busch is always someone who you have to think about when it comes to Martinsville.
Yeah, you talk about Clint Bowyer, and I'll give you a free pick here in just a second involving Clint Bowyer, actually, for all the listeners here. But speaking with J.J. Yaley today for a little while about this race and about NASCAR in general, I want everybody to know NASCAR is going to be the first sport out there to allow fans into the race. And now they're going to be allowing sponsors into the suites where the stands are empty, starting with the Homestead race. And don't bear in mind, folks, there's 2 races in the next 5 days. Scott Spreitzer and I are going to have you cover for both of them. We got Homestead in Miami, and they're going to start allowing people in the suites for the sponsors of the cars as they start, loosening these restrictions that they have. But nonetheless, you speaking about Clint Bowyer here, bear in mind he won this race in 2018. He finished 7th both in 2017 and 2019. And he, like you said, if you're looking for a long shot, he might be worth a shot. And you're speaking of Kurt Busch, I'm going to give out a little lean here with Clint Bowyer over Kurt Busch. He's laying $120 on the head-to-heads early, Scott. And I think Boyer's going to have a good day here. I really do. I think he's going to run up front most of the day, his experience, and he's really good on short tracks, and
this is
it just –
people. If you're looking for entertainment value, now, obviously, you have to think about money management. But if you're looking for good entertainment value, you just want to throw a few bucks and have somebody to root for. Clint Bowyer is one of those guys at 20-1, hefty odds. And Tony just mentioned it. I just mentioned it. He won here in the spring of 18. He's been good on this track, even when he hasn't won. He loves flat tracks. There's no doubt about that. I'll throw one at you also here, Tony. Ryan Newman is an absolute, as some people have called him, a nasty bulldog at Martinsville. It is so tough to get around Ryan Newman. So look for spots to play Ryan Newman when he's a short favorite. I've got Ryan Newman finishing in my top 15. I've got Matt DeBenedetto finishing outside the top 20. And Ryan Newman right now is only laying about $120 at the shops that offer that matchup.
Yeah, and if you see Newman, if you can get some good odds, I know Circa here in town's got some great odds for NASCAR now on the head-to-heads, and many other outlets we won't mention, but the big outlets have got all kinds of matchups for these Monster Cup races. And anytime you have drivers that have been driving 4 years or less on the circuit up against somebody like a Newman, a Jimmie Johnson, any of these experienced drivers that have ran this track 20, 30 times, and you can catch them at minus 140 or under, Scott, that's some really good value. This is one of those racetracks too, where you're going to see some spin outs. There's no doubt about it. It's bumper to bumper. Rubbin is racing, as you mentioned, to open up the show. But there's also an opportunity when one of these top drivers gets spun out that they can still get back and get up in the mix in this track, because there's a lot of lap traffic everybody's going to deal with. And like I said, this Martinsville offers a lot of unique challenges, Scott, and I think there's some really good spots and I've looked at the early lines here as we're putting together our card. There's probably going to be at least 3 picks on my card, and I definitely have a 7-unit pick for this one ready to go here on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I got a 7-unit play myself, and we're looking to go to 22-7 with the last 29 and 29-10 with the last 39. Tony's picks, my picks, both going to be up at DocSports.com exclusively, and that'll be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, 8:30 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern at Martinsville. One final note that I wanted to mention, Tony, that it's all yours. We've seen Martin Truex, his name flying across the screen on those odds to win the race. I'm interested in seeing how he does this week, because the change Martin Truex made this season. And bottom line is he doesn't have the same crew chief. And although he's been in a couple of races, he had bad luck a few weeks ago. I think it was at Charlotte.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that I don't know that they are in sync right now. And so, he might have a couple of matchups that you find talking about Truex that look like a good spot to play him, but I'm not real sure that he and his new crew chief are on the same page. Sometimes that takes half the races in a season to get used to for a driver and a brand new crew chief.
Yeah, you've seen that. And then another racer, and although I think he'll have success here, but has had trouble this year and struggles, Kyle Busch, for one reason or another over at Joe Gibbs. But Stewart Haas Racing right now is one of those teams that's going to be awfully tough to beat. And but you're right, Truex has struggled a little bit. He's also had some bad luck, on some of the tracks. Yeah, just I think karma all the way around for him right now. He's had some problems. Pretty much ever since he left when Furniture Row and the '78 car went out of business. So it's going to be an interesting race. And don't forget,
I wouldn't go that far. He's still one of the top drivers. I wouldn't go that far. He's still one of the top drivers.
Yeah, but he's just struggled where I think he's had some opportunities to run a lot better than what he has. But he is. I think he'll be a factor here this week. Possibly, like I said earlier, he's getting a lot of buzz, on the internet and some of these chat room stuff like that I've been reading. We'll find out. It's going to be a great race, folks. 263 miles there at Martinsville. And don't forget on Sunday, right back at it again. And, of course, those of you that like the truck racing and the Xfinity, you're going to see those races as well. NASCAR is kicking in. We got NBA around the corner, Scott. Major League Baseball still in talks. Golf coming up here. So a lot of great things over at DocSports.com. Take advantage of that free $60 and take advantage of Scott Spreitzer's program, folks, and kick it in with you get $60. You can go 30 with Scott, 30 with me, stick it in the bank and come back Sunday and do it all over again. It's been that simple in NASCAR. So best of luck this Sunday, Scott. I appreciate you coming on over and joining me. I hope to see you face to face soon.
Same here, Tony. Take care, man.